Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Straight in with it.
As soon as we finish at 5, I'm jumping in a car off to Nottingham to see Jim for dinner for 7:30. So I don't know how long it's going to take me to get there. 2 hours maybe. I got an email through from the hotel this morning. So I booked it last minute because I forgot to book a hotel. I paid in full, non-refundable, because I was definitely going. And then at 6 o'clock I woke up to an email saying, "Oh, just to let you know, we've got scaffolding around the building. We just done a re-roof and the council have let us take the scaffolding down tomorrow morning. We start at 6 o'clock. Great. I've got my first night off without the kids. And I've got scaffolders outside the window at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. What joy.
You'll be out there with your little cup of coffee. Right, boys?
All right, boys.
Morning, lad.
Fucking great. Welcome back. Episode 3. Here we are, Ground Up Pod. We're not all in the UK. Jack is actually doing a solid at the moment. He's on holiday with the missus out in Peru. Look at that. Stunning. But he's still committed to the podcast, which is amazing. Go on, Jack, give us a little snippet. How is it out there?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, obviously, it's probably more you guys being flexible to record this at a reasonable time because we're 6 hours behind. I was actually up early enough to record this with you guys, but I was getting a completion over the line. But to summarise the place, you definitely know you're in a third world country here. It's very backward. Obviously, it's mayhem in the city centres, very overpopulated. There's no law, or it doesn't seem like there's any law. Just coming back from the airport last night from Cusco to Lima, we nearly got in a car incident where our taxi driver just decided to drive across what seemed like Cemetery Junction without looking right or left, which is always exciting. The countryside and so it's obviously leaning in towards the Andes and the Amazon rainforest as a country. So it's absolutely gorgeous scenery and areas, and there's a historic interest from the Inca, which is almost like a colony or whatever you want to call it, that sort of built a path all the way from the top of South America all the way down through Ecuador, Chile, Peru, and they built some really cool buildings and structures and towns and settlements. And what crazy is out here, they do it all above sort of 5,000 meters elevation, which is nuts. Imagine we've got the site, which is an airspace scheme on the top of a 4-story block of flats. And they're doing it, at the top of where they haven't got any resources. They're right in the middle of the jungle, and hats off to them. But yeah, it's a beautiful country. If you like culture, sightseeing, eating guinea pig, you'll love it here.
Which, speaking of sightseeing, I did see this on your Instagram, and I thought I had to bring it to the pod. Look at that. Getting selfies. What, they llamas or alpacas?
You wanted them to smile, did you, Jack?
Yeah, so they're llamas. So our tour guide gave me a good rule of thumb that a llama is like that. Hang on. And an alpaca is like that. So you like to squeeze the face in. Does it make sense? So llama, alpaca.
Learn something new every day,
that makes
don't
any
you?
sense.
Wow.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay them down. Let's get those deals. Deals making money, baby.
That's sweet, mate. Well, look, glad you're having a good time. You're back Sunday, innit?
Yeah, fly Sunday. So back to normal routine, and thanks for being flexible, gents, for the future pods.
Of course. Well, yeah, so in this episode, guys, we are going to be touching on more topics. So we've got some topics to go through, trending things, stuff we missed in the last episode, if you remember. So to do with PropTech, things coming to the space. And then we're going to go into some audience questions. We've had some nice audience questions on social media. And then we're going to go into Ground Up Goats. So Ground Up Goats will be us talking about people who we think are balling at the moment. Let's, I think, just get straight into it, shall we, boys? With quick wins, I think we were going to start this one with. So obviously, we talk a lot about our failures and the miseries of being a developer. Sometimes it does just feel like you're climbing uphill all the time. But there are, on the road to building our businesses and our development projects, there are small wins. So we don't want this podcast to be too negative, but we also don't want to dwell on the wins too much because we need to be focused on problem solving as the leaders of our business. That is what we need to be doing 99% of the time. But today, we'll start with a couple small wins just from this week. So, Stu, do you want to start us off?
Yes, mate, no problem. A couple of quick wins. So we've got a site in Farnham, which we've just completed now. A 7 2-bed unit scheme, which we have got on the market. So it went on the market yesterday. Just going to start collecting all the information of people interested. And we've got an open day next Saturday on the 18th of May. It's in Farnham in Surrey. It's open to any developer who wants to come have a look, anyone local, and obviously for tenants potentially to look at bagging a flat. It's a really lovely site. We're really proud of it. And so it's 10 till 12 next Saturday. If anyone wants to pop along, then do feel free to. We've got a site in Farnham, in Farnborough, which is an 18-unit scheme with a new office below, which we're going to use as our main office. We've had some structural issues with it. I think we'll go into it in another topic, but ultimately I used a more of a residential engineer to try and work on an existing frame. And because we're borrowing best part of £2.5 million off the banks, they want a lot more reassurances and letters of reassurance and stuff, which our engineer wasn't able to do. So we've had a few issues the last few weeks, just getting the answers they need. We've had to go back on a few bits. It's probably cost us about 20 grand. So the lessons learned on that is always use a reputable or a bigger practice who can help you through these issues. But yeah, that's all good. That's all been sorted out last week. And now it's full steam ahead next week. And our site in Twickenham, which we bought, I done the general sort of property development thing and tried to carve up the ground floor into a unit at the back and then try and rent the front part of the shop out. But we have since we're in the pre-let condition, so I won't go too much into it at the moment. But effectively, we've got a dentist practice that want to take the whole ground floor. So not only we lowered our build costs, that we've actually uplifted the value, and we had our valuation back yesterday. And it's come back 400 grand more than what we aim for. So we've brought our build cost down and we've increased the GDV, which is just help. Yeah, it's going to help us a lot. So really excited about getting on with that scheme. But yeah, that's my wins for the week.
Nice, mate. Nicely done. I love how we were going into wins and almost immediately you started falling into like the problems that got you into those wins.
Mate, with every win, with every problem, there's three solutions, right? So got to keep, that's what Jack's saying. I think every problem, there's three solutions. So just keep battering off the problems and keep winning.
Hats off to you for getting build costs down and GDVs up. That's a difficult market to be doing that.
That's the game we play, mate. But yeah, no, I think the commercial stuff on the ground floor is super, super exciting. The more I'm learning about it and the more options, especially with a blue chip tenant or someone who's got a real good, strong balance sheet, it just adds so much more value. So yeah, rather than trying to look at every site as just a resi site, really trying to work the ground floor is opening up massive doors, man. Definitely in this market.
Banging, mate. Sounds like a good week. Dorian, what are you saying?
Yeah, good stuff there, Stu, and I agree with Jack as well. It's semi-commercial with high quality tenants. Great strategy, 100%. So yeah, just like you guys have got some, last week's been eventful, both up and down, but focusing on the ups. We had at the beginning of the week a planning application, be determined committee, got approved for 20 apartments that we're working with a local housing association on. So that's good news. We've also got we're hopefully, it is happening. Funds with the solicitors, been working on a completion, just completed on a 21 apartment site as well, forward sold to housing association. The whole back-to-back situation is unfolding today, so we're simultaneously buying the site and selling the site to the housing association and entering into the build contract. We get our first valuation, so all of our costs come back, and then we're basically cash flow positive then through the rest of the scheme. So that's good news, and that's today. And then also today, we had another site of 20 apartments approved at planning committee. So full steam ahead onto that one as well. Get straight on there. Look forward to the demolition. So yeah.
Good work.
Happy days. Go on, D. Jack, what are you saying other than flying through some mountains and shit?
I suppose my first win is actually one of my big goals this year is I'm a workaholic and I like working long hours and doing a lot, but you can sometimes become caught in a trap where you are actually doing too much. And what I mean by that is whether I work long hours or not, if what I'm trying to achieve is impossible for one person, that's another thing. So hired a PA about 6 weeks ago. And unfortunately for me, I was called into jury service in April. So we're obviously recording this early May. So that was 2 weeks away from my desk, and I'm currently in Peru. So that's another week away from my desk. That's technically 3 weeks away from my desk within a 6 week period, which is a challenge because I wouldn't choose to do that. But it's a community service that I need to be doing jury service. And it's, by the way, very difficult to get out of. And I did try it and also consider the fine. But I did it, and as a result, one of my wins is my email inbox is below 50 actionable items or unread emails, which has been with help from the team. So I've technically got a few people in my business now that really support me, including a personal assistant, including a guy that is basically second in command in acquisitions, and he's taken a lot of workload off me, and he's super sharp. So it's refreshing to be able to collaborate and work with him, and also reduce my time on stuff. And then we have a legals business manager and a office manager that leans into marketing as well as those. So I think kind of weirdly celebrating resourcefulness in the team and being able to do what I should be doing and taking time away from the day-to-day grind, even all that be it shouldn't be really in jury service or holiday. We've also, from a more business perspective, 2 refinances closed this week in our social portfolio, quite big loans. One was 1.2 million, one was 2.9 million on a 23-bed social housing building and a 13-bed social housing building, which is good. We've managed to get 3 offers out this week, which I've had a couple of calls with our acquisitions guy to make sure that they can get out. And we're due to complete and funds are in place for a flip in Central Suites. I mean, we'll probably talk a little bit more about XP surveys and that surveying business, but we've talked, and I actually did it on Dorian's podcast and interview, where we talked about that business is currently in Death Valley. You either have a high margin lean business, and then Death Valley all the way up to, for that business, is about 1 to 2 million revenue, and then you start getting into higher margin, more profitable businesses. I believe Stuart Sky Lofts is probably similar sort of sizes. Once you start to get to like 2-3 million revenue, it starts to get a lot easier, and the margins are better because your overheads per sort of value creation, or the people that actually bring in the business, get paid for the business, fee earners is the terminology I'm looking for, dilute the cost of the overhead of the business. And we're in that Death Valley. So we're currently recruiting, and this week 2 offers were accepted. So we've got a business development manager starting and a senior surveyor starting, as well as, and that we believe that's where we need to be to take us to that sort of revenue target that we need to be aiming for in the next 12 months. It's 600k revenue target. And then we want to double it year on year thereafter until we hit 20 million and decide to maybe exit that business, which is good news. And we're live on site on 6 different sites at the moment, and they're all steaming along as they should, 65 units collectively. And that's more Ben's side of the business from a delivery perspective, but just good that I'm on a different continent and they're still steaming ahead. That's it from me. Ryan, your turn.
Amazing, mate. Amazing. Yeah. So this week, I'll touch on 3 sort of main things. So finally, we've had a committee date set for a 17 apartment scheme that has been in planning now for over 18 months. And it has been...
That's fast, right?
It's quick, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quick for you, Dorian.
I was going to say, Dorian's probably had 2 kids by then.
Oh, Dorian, how old are your children, mate? My missus keeps asking me to ask you. What are the ages?
What are they? 3 and 5.
What are they?
You had to think.
Nearly 4 and 6. It's
Very
coming
nice.
up.
Sorry,
yeah.
Rye. Sorry, Rye. I just thought, while I thought about it, let's just ask the question.
Any of you got
Give me a look
kids?
at
And
books.
you got kids now, haven't you? On
2, mate,
Ryan
yeah, 2
don't,
and a half.
Jack don't, Stuart do.
Yeah.
Yeah. 2
Just
and a
you
half.
two,
Yeah.
mate. You 2 oldies.
Flying the flag, mate.
Yeah, man.
No,
I
sorry,
don't have
Rye.
kids. All right. Yeah. So planning committee finally set. Honestly, it's just been such a chew with this council. We've had another one with them as well that took about 13 months. And that was for 22 units in total. But that one's fine. That's going through pre-construction, everything now. And this week we actually had a few cost savings on some of those preliminaries. Saved a few grand on a civils design and an M&E design, which is always nice. But yeah, getting into this committee has just been, fuck me, it's just taking so long. And then you've got the same council trying to hit us with double council tax rates because of how long it's been vacant. But I'm going, well, it's your own council that have been taking so long on this planning decision, and that's why it's been vacant. And now you're trying to hit us with double rates. It's just so backwards. But yeah, so that's been nice. That's going to committee. Obviously, it's going to committee, so we still don't know the answer, but it's got full planning support. So hopefully we're okay. No major objections. And then office refurb. Finally, we're at a point where the end is in sight. So by the 20th, we should be in the office, and we're bursting at the seams at the moment. We've got too many people working in my house and in their own houses. And it'd be nice to bring the cohesiveness together of everyone in the office. Right now, it's just construction guys in there. But the upstairs is kitted out. It won't be finished, but we'll have the flooring in, the desks can go in. So that'll be a big milestone for our business, I suppose, like finally getting everyone together in one place rather than sort of disjointed in the way we are at the moment. So that's nice. And then another big sort of milestone is we've hit 10 clients at the moment ready to buy. So usually we have about 5 or 6 at any given time. That's always climbed up. In the early days, you kind of like, shit, I need to find someone to buy something. But now we're at 10 just waiting there ready to buy. We have about 40, 50 clients of a list. But obviously, some won't have capital for a certain amount of time. Some are already on site and got their capital deployed. But we now have enough clients building up that there's no way we'll be able to fulfill 10 in a quick fashion. We could probably do it within a month. And that's what we're trying to do, beef up our acquisition side. But this is what I've been aiming for, to work on the marketing, to build it up so that we have enough sales demand coming in to then build up the underlying development business, which is the goal. The goal is to start with these HMOs, build a conveyor belt, and then move on to commercial to residential apartments, and then move on and up to bigger and bigger sites. But I wanted to build the basis of those teams here where the risk is lower, and the margins are generally a bit better for the risk taken on, to then build that team out. So now we are splitting into departments to fulfill the demand. And the next thing we know we're going to need is a technical team, because we're doing so many designs left, right, and center. We could pay probably for 2 architects on full-time salaries. So it's, quite a bit going on, but it's nice to hit a metric where you go, oh, 10 at any given time. That's sweet. That's becomes a war chest for acquisitions. And a lot of the guys that we have doing the HMOs want to go on to commercial to resi. So there's a natural trend to help feed where our business is going. So yeah, nice things. But anyway, that's the quick wins.
Lovely.
Hopefully for you viewers,
Well,
it's been
we're forgetting a major win actually on behalf of the Ground Up
Mhm.
podcast. And apologies, I didn't clear with you all guys, but I'm going to do it anyway. It just come to my mind. We've accepted an editor, haven't we, to
We have.
really spice up our content for the viewers.
Yeah, we've hired our first employee. So Sean is now working with us to distribute content at scale. I mean, I suppose why not? This is the kind of podcast where we should tell you all the details and why. We want to
Yeah.
scale this podcast. We want to get more viewers. The number one way to do that initially is to have a production team, and an editor being the main one. Content distribution is really important. So we thought we'd do it.
As long as it's not the editor that I was using previously, which I shared the video to these 3, but it's not going public. And basically every other word I was saying ended with a ka-ching, and I was thinking, oh my god, this is next level. Anyway, for another day maybe.
Yeah, well, what I'll do, I'll overlay a little video of Sean then in the podcast edit so you guys can see him. But he'll be working with my guys up here to be able to get as much content out of him as humanly possible. And there's so many things that we've discussed marketing wise, like what we can do to push this podcast. But we want, obviously, it's not a business as such, but it's a brand, and we want it to build. So we knew we needed an editor to come in full time, and who knows where it will go.
Well, ultimately, we all believe that the value that we're going to share and all the questions we want to answer for people across all our networks is going to be so valuable that why wouldn't we invest to get it out there more and more? And we want to get it to the point really where everybody knows about it. It's classed as valuable content that people want to subscribe to and listen to. And it'll get to the stage kind of like what Grant Cardone says, where if we ask people, have you heard of Grant Up podcast, and they say no, we'll just say, well, look, I apologize for that, but we'll make sure we double down on our marketing so you do know.
And I think that's us done for the main intro section, and we're on to ground up, round up, which we love. And the first one we'll go through, let's bring this up on the old screen. So yeah, PropTech. I mean, I don't ever see PropTech get spoken about much. I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of property people doing YouTube videos and bits and bobs out there, but not enough talk about the technology that's coming to disrupt the market. So today we're going to go through 2 cases. We'll try and be quick and then see what everyone thinks of them. The first one, Bilt. It's an app in America, well, a company in America, and it will be coming to the UK as well soon, I believe. And it's just got a valuation of $3.1 billion. Ken Chenault, if I'm saying his name right, just joined as chairman, and he's the guy who scaled out Amex, so American Express. So when you bring in a big gun like that to come and sit on as a chair, you mean serious shit about your scale. And these guys want to be everywhere. They want to be ubiquitous with renters. So let's talk about what their plan is for the business. Bilt Rewards raised equity in transaction that more than doubles the startup's valuation, 3.1 billion. Consumers continue to flock to its loyalty program, which converts rental payments to points that can be used for air miles and other rewards. So anyone listening who's familiar with Amex, American Express cards, and other types of credit cards, the more you buy, the more points you build up, and you can use those as almost like tokens to then go out and buy other sorts of services. And I don't know about you, but I've never heard of this in the rental sector, so it seems like quite a new thing. I think there are some other companies that have been doing a bit like this, but no one as aggressive as what this startup seems to be aiming for. They've raised a lot of money. They brought in big guns to come sit as chair. Yeah, so aimed largely, so Bilt members who are largely between the age of 21 to 35 are now spending almost $20 billion on the firm's platform every year. Cities with the most Bilt members include New York, Los Angeles, Dallas, Washington, Seattle. Members earn points for certain spending, which they can then redeem for rent credits. So that's interesting, for rent credits, so to help potentially reduce some of their rent. And also rewards with certain merchant partners, as well as transfer to outside loyalty programs like those operated by major airlines, hotel chains. I know they're now speaking to local restaurants so that local apartment blocks the tenants can build up tenants to then go and pay in local high streets or at local shops, which is quite interesting. With Channel, so the new chair, Bilt is getting an executive who helped build American Express into the payments giant it is today, with more than 130 million cards in force. Bilt has uniquely captured loyalty in an area previously untouched, rental payments. So yeah, I do think this is fascinating. The startup is also in talks with mortgage services about partnerships that would enable homeowners to earn rewards for making their mortgage payments. Already, some of the country's largest landlords, including Related Co's, Greystar, Willow Bridge Property Co., Avalon Bay Communities Inc., and other big firms have committed to using Bilt as their sole payments platform. As a result, the startup has an active members in all 50 states. We're laser focused on expanding the number of Americans that earn rewards from their rent. I mean, that's great. Obviously, going to mortgage, so mortgage payments and rental payments. I think that's quite a fascinating move. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so diving in first, I am an Amex avid user. I think in my wallet I've got all the business gold cards that you can get in every business that I've got, and I've got my personal British Airways black card. So if I spend over, it's now £15,000 per year, I get 2 companion flights anywhere in the world, and I just pay for the tax and the fare fees for that. And what is difficult about Amex is it's not accepted everywhere. And also the when you look at someone's take-home salary, so basically what they take home before tax, the biggest expense out of that, no matter who they are, grossly speaking, on an average basis, is their mortgage or the rent. So that is commonly lost in a reward scheme. Because it's going straight to a landlord or to a business, and you can't pay on your Amex for rent as much as you'd wish you. Well, I have got a hack on ways that you can. If you get a payment link, then you can put it through PayPal, which can pay on your Amex. For anyone out there that's an avid points junkie like I am, so I think it's a great concept, and I think it's going to be lapped up by a lot of the market. But what I feel Amex is it's not a mass market thing. It's more of a premium thing, and only a few people actually benefit from the product. And what I mean by that is I am married to an American. I fly a lot to West Coast America, so I spend a lot of time flying. So the companion flight is a no-brainer for me, because if I spend 15 grand a year, I would have spent £2,000 to £3,000 a year just on one flight for both of us return. Now I can get first class. It costs me 600 quid in fares for both of us round trip, off the back of spending that 15k, and those flights are probably worth over 15k. So for me, it hugely benefits me, but I've got to make sure that I book the flights 9 months in advance, no later, no sooner. I've got to make sure that I'm on what airports we're flying to, and you've got to be very on it to utilize that benefit really well. If you leave it 2 months too late, or you need to book a spontaneous flight, it's almost better just booking it direct. So I feel that the product will benefit some people loads that are on it, get it, work the system, play the process. and others that will just be part of it, paying the subscription to be part of it, which for an Amex is £250 a month. Essentially, just be, I've got the card showing off, ego thing in their wallet or whatever it looks like. I'm part of, Bilt or whatever it may be. Great brand and name, by the way, and not actually benefit from it. So it'd be interesting to see how they scale. A lot of businesses in the States, all they care about is the people. So they bring in all the right resources with the CEO of Coca-Cola or, MD of Facebook or whatever it may be. They conglomerate all these powerhouses to take the business and the valuations to where they need to be. But it will actually be interesting to see if the deliverability and the execution supports the valuations with the right people in place. But I think it's a great idea because, as I said, the biggest expense that anyone on this earth has is rent or mortgages, unless you live a lifestyle like Stuart. Then he may outweigh that.
I don't know about that, but
Yeah, Stuart.
I'm a massive Amex
Look
fan
at that
as well.
Lambo on his shelf.
Yeah, it's the dream, mate. It's the dream. I'm a massive Amex fan as well. I run my whole life by Amex. My biggest concern with this loan, I tried to do a little bit of research in the time I had this week. What is their business model? Because obviously the Amex model works and, the point system works because the retailer takes the hit. So are they going to then say, well, are they prepaying onto the card? So it's almost guaranteeing the rent for the landlord or mortgage company. And if it's the landlord that's taking the hit, are they sort of expecting a 2-3% reduction to then obviously pay for these credit tokens? So I don't know if that's something that's been looked into yet, or actually how they're going to make it operate.
So their business model, typically like most cards or any really business that operates on like a reward system for incentivizing, their business model is going to be through a combination of micro charges. Basically, they're going to be it's all about micro charges across the entire stream. So if they're going to be working with there's going to be some form of hidden transaction fees, in my opinion, or there's going to be some form of kickback from, in addition to who they're partnering for rewards, there's going to be some form of kind of like commission structure or incentivization from that reward partner to pay Bilt, stuff like that, or there's going to be terminal fees for processing payments through a certain platform that they charge, like the landlord or the property manager or something like what typically happens with Amex. If you make a payment with Amex, the reason why people don't accept it is because there's a charge. Ultimately, there's a premium on using Amex. That's why it's not accepted in a lot of places. And I'm guessing that this will be the same. They'll also probably have, when they get big enough traction, people will pay Bilt to be part of their network of rewards. So they're going to get advertisement, and it'll snowball like that. But if you think about it, if they've got in America, there's obviously, I don't know the figure, but it must be tens and tens and tens of millions of renters. And if they capture, and globally there's going to be millions, right? So if they capture microcharges across millions of monthly transactions, it adds up very quickly to a lot. And not only does it add up to a lot, but their business model is going to be saying, if you pay for this and it works through your card, the chance, and you get rewards, chances are the retention rate for customers are going to be very, very high. They're probably not going to not use it, if that makes sense. Like you would do with Amex, you use it, you get into the swing of it, you get rewarded for it, you keep using it. It'll be the same for this. So their forecasted projected cash flow is quite reliable and it's growing. Therefore, their business valuation is based on their future cash flow. Blah blah blah. So I think it's excellent, to be honest. But I struggle with Sorry.
No, I was going to say, interestingly, a lot of businesses work off demand supply. So there's demand in the market and they supply that market for goods. All of us do that. There's houses that are required. We seek that niche, we build the product and we supply that demand. This is actually the opposite. This is making it so common in the rentability market that the consumer is the decider and creates the demand for themselves. And what they will probably end up doing, which is clever, is go to the consumer market by storm, make sure everyone's on this benefit card, because why wouldn't you as a consumer? And then the vendors have to adopt it because the mass market is saying, I'll only rent it if I can use this rent card and get the credit, and force hand on the demand, which is a really interesting business, and you've got to be big to make that work because you've got to monopolize.
If you think about it, though, is also, I don't know if this is the case, but if you think about what they've done with bringing on Amex, Bilt could be very much a stepping stone to them launching their own type of Amex credit card style, separate to rental prepayment or rental cards, and they could be looking to try to. I'm thinking just forwarded. They could be looking potentially as an angle to do something that way, because let's not remember that the biggest commodity in this day and age is data. So if they can get into renters, which will account for tens of millions of people across the world, and if they can get them using their own credit card as well with rewards, again, hence potentially this Amex big employee, they could capture so much data, which is also a saleable commodity
Yeah.
in today's world, especially to advertisers. I mean, look, the grand scheme of it could be massive.
That's one of the points when you're asking the question, Dorian, how are they funding this? I think there's a huge brand play here, a massive brand play, where they're kind of creating from what is, and Jack, you mentioned that rental payments, mortgage payments are huge parts of someone's outgoings, and they can almost be seen as dead capital as far as, consumption's concerned, going to local businesses, buying their services, buying their goods. And they're almost creating liquidity in some way out of what is a huge cost to everyone in society. And they're connecting the dot between this huge capital expenditure we all go through and then local consumption as well as macro consumption, because they're also going to join local restaurants and other things. And for those local restaurants, even if they are funding it in kind of like a gift voucher rather than thinking of it as micropayments, if they're then getting more local renters, they then have access to local renters in a database, like you say, the valuable data, they can then target them direct for coming to their restaurant or coming to their pop-up. Yeah, so that they're creating equity, if you like, out of something that's already there by connecting the dot in this clever reward system.
So interestingly, there's companies to sort of, obviously, when we're talking about this mass market scale, it's not really something that us three are in. Well, you three and myself speaking forward, but to sort of open that and encapsulate the size of the market, there's payroll companies out there that do large companies. I'm talking about large corporates, multinational, thousands of employees, sometimes 10,000 employees. There's payroll companies where they take all of the payroll off the company. They handle everything, including national insurance, tax benefits, cars, healthcare, blah, 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 and then they pay all the employees as a third party. And the way that they get paid is when they take the money, between when they release the money and they're doing all that management in between, they make a return in like a savings account on that capital, and that pays their staff and a profit just because the mass of the value is huge. When you get into like multinational businesses, it can be as simple as a simple fix, idea, software, seamless solution, product that works well. Because you're playing in a mass market, you can hugely capitalize on that. And Dorian was referring to what products they could move into. I think one of the best products they can move into is actually mortgages. If you've got a database with millions of renters, millions of mortgage payers, and you went to a big bank, Lloyd's are backing them, for an example, and said, I want a credit line of £10 billion because I've got a base that will borrow off that. They can use they've got all of the software, they've got all the data, they've got all the intellectual properties, they know their spending habits, they know their affordability. Boom, like that, they could have a mortgage application done, and they could take a bit of cream off that as well. So I think it could be ridiculous.
You're actually segueing nicely into the next PropTech article. Are we good with that? I think that's some good nuggets there.
Perfect.
It will be interesting how they come into the UK though. Just because I'm not experienced at all with the US. I know Jack, you've been out there, but I don't know if because all it keeps coming back down to is, could you imagine landlords accepting card payments? That's the thing is, in America, is it more, is it larger companies that mainly deal with the majority of rental stock out there versus in the UK where it's mainly, I don't know.
I think it'll be
something for.
I think it's agents you got to think of as well, though, because I think agents will be, whilst yes, getting every landlord to come up to speed, this will be tricky. Not so hard to get agents enticed if it means they're more likely to secure the renter base or secure tenants, and they may be advising landlords. Maybe Bilt will come up with. I mean, it seems like they're coming up with ways to incentivize large landlords, i.e., large agents. When they're talking about landlords in America, they're talking about these behemoth companies.
To answer that question, Ryan, do you use a payment software for your business?
Yes.
So we use PayProp, and it does all of the payment management. They take a fee, and it spits out reports. All the maintenance, cleaning, management is gone off the top of that. And then we get net rents in, and we pay for that product. So if they could offer that service, I would be using them.
What's that called, Jack? PayProp.
PayProp.
What do you
Right,
use, Ryan?
what do you use?
Well, when you said software, I thought you meant like a 1090 that manages our rental statements, but the actual money comes just straight into our Metro. You mean for the lettings business, yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah, it just comes straight into Metro.
you check it. You should check it out. It will save you a lot of time. So basically, you set up the payments. You set up the tenant. It knows how long they're renting for. It sends them a text, a monthly invoice, and a payment link every month. If they're late, it sends reminders, and it
Nice.
reconciles it for you and flags to you who hasn't paid, who has paid across the portfolio. So we would actually, Ryan, manually go through our bank statements, look at who's paid, fill out a spreadsheet, chase the 3 people that hadn't, and then next month do the same. Which is I think this probably costs £300 a month, and we don't do anything anymore. We just chase. We get
Okay,
flagged, we chase.
I'm going to look at PayProp myself then, because I've got
same.
I've got that issue. Okay, thanks, Jack.
Yeah, great, mate.
I knew this podcast was a good idea.
For anyone else out there listening, PayProp, if you run a letters business or you manage your own portfolio, sounds bloody brilliant. All right, I'm going to segue now, guys, just to keep us on track. So, segue to the next PropTech news. Where are we? Rightmove is making some major moves, and I think this will be interesting for anyone watching. And we may dive down a rabbit hole here, but we'll try and keep the time condensed. So, Rightmove joins £10 million investment into Coadjute. So, what is Coadjute? So, Rightmove has joined with Lloyds Bank and Nationwide and NatWest in making £10 million strategic investment in Coadjute, the London-based property technology business. So Coadjute brings estate agents, conveyancers, mortgage lenders, buyers, sellers all together onto a single network where information from deeds to digital identity to financial transactions can all be exchanged quickly and securely, regardless of the system the party involved uses. Lloyds Group has led the investment partners and contributed £3 million as a part of the latest funding round, which brings the cumulative investment in Coadjute to $23 million since being founded in 2018. Any of you or anyone listening who's familiar with startup tech businesses, 23 million doesn't really even scratch the surface. So they're still very much in the early phases of testing out whatever. They must be using AI and something else to aggregate all this information into one clean platform. But I'm sure we're going to hear more and more about this platform as it builds. So Coadjute says the new funding will be used to power a national rollout and expand the scope of the network to include mortgage brokers and lenders. Dan Solomon, CEO of Coadjute, said, "We're delighted that the Coadjute network is now being backed by the biggest players in the UK property market, enabling us to further expand our offering and roll out more home movers and professionals that serve them. Together with the estate agents, conveyancers, brokers joining the network, we hope to transform the experience of moving home in the UK, making it quicker, easier, and safer for everyone in the future." Coadjute, who are transforming the housing buying process by developing technology that brings everyone involved together securely, so homes can change hands smoothly and quicker, and people can start enjoying their new homes as soon as possible. So that's all that needs to be said from the article. I think we can come to quite a few conclusions here. If I just start it off by saying, in my opinion, and for what I think they're going to be doing, is bringing together every part of the buying process, and then creating a platform with so much proprietary advantage compared to any competitor that they can then tag on all other means of services, whether that's for investors or it's for people looking for their own home or renters or whatever it is, and using blockchain technology underneath for secure title deeds and the conveyancing, and creating a package that just sits almost like an NFT on a ledger, so that when you transact, why do you need conveyancing anymore? Why do you need the solicitors involved and then mortgage lenders and other people getting tagged into that same platform?
Well,
it starts to become pretty crazy.
okay, guys. Yeah. So, I mean, doing a few notes on that. So we buy and sell 100,000 homes a year in the UK. And yeah, and it's all going to happen all at once because we need blockchain technology, we need a secure ledger, and we'll still need solicitors and we'll still need everyone to do their job. But it needs to be a smart contract where I don't understand why we can't take this prehistoric way of doing business, with all the time that's on the phone, the emails and all the rest of it, where if you can make two silos and you can have one side, which is the buyer, and one side, which is the seller, and both sides are responsible for doing, like the buyer would be doing their own KYC, their own mortgages, getting everything lined up with their broker. And then on the other side of the seller, a bit like when you sell on auction, you've got someone who's doing all the deeds, the searches, all the legal infrastructure's done. So then, as soon as you get the two transaction, they agree. You press a button, and it happens, and it can happen within a week, comfortably, rather than waiting 8, 12, 18 weeks to do these deals. But it has to happen alongside a secure network, which would need to be a blockchain ledger or something that everyone can agree to and adhere to, that can't be hacked. And that's really what's got to happen at the same time. But great idea.
For me, I've got a couple of opinions, right? So I'm more of a skeptic, to be honest with you, on that, Stu. Like, I understand and agree with the principle, but the problem is just that our regulatory and law system in the UK is so archaic and so behind. It's not proactive. Our legal system is very reactive, and I think technology has to go to such a point where it's so easy that then regulation comes in and makes it possible. And I actually think that this business here, Coadjute, I think it's called, personally, right? And I mean this with respect, because they've obviously invested 20 plus million to date. But I think this type of business model is highly susceptible to that, what that law is called, that first mover disadvantage, i.e. they're going to come in, set the scene, get APIs with the key things, but ultimately all they're making is a platform which just everyone feeds into. As soon as they've established that, there's no proprietary technology, in my opinion, there to stop anyone then setting back up and getting those same APIs. It's kind of like what's happened in land PropTech, where land inside, but then all of a sudden then there's like 50 others now, because they're all using the same APIs from Google, from land registry, from the planning system, etc. Because unless I've misheard, what are they actually doing other than just bringing a platform, basically putting your home acquisition on there as the center, and basically trying to get everybody to link in together with all these updates? I mean, am I missing something?
I disagree with you, Dorian, for a couple of reasons. I would agree with you if this was just a startup, but it's not. It's a startup working in partnership with one of the biggest property platform in the UK. So they've got a lot of proprietary strength with that brand, and that's a lot of strength to have the Rightmove platform that is pretty much everyone's go-to for finding. Oh shit! Hello.
Are we losing him?
You're gonna
He's
have to
back.
repeat that, Ryan. Sorry.
Yeah. I thought it was just mine then. I was thinking
I think your internet connection disagreed with you. Sorry, mate.
Dorian wins.
Whoa! Fucking hell! Shit! Wait, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're back. You went a bit distorted
It
then.
literally disappeared and then it just came back all at once, like. Fucking hell, that was mad. But I'm back now. Yeah, you guys can hear me now. Yeah.
Go on, Rye. Start that bit again, and I want to talk about layer one. Go on, mate.
I'll start again. So I disagree with you, Dorian. And the only reason I do, like I said, if it was just a normal startup, I'd say, yeah, I mean, they're a drop in the ocean. There's going to be very competitive, blah, blah, blah. But we're talking about Rightmove, big platform, already got a huge amount of market share, big backers behind them. And the big backers being Nationwide, Lloyds, NatWest, big banks. These banks and those kind of platforms play a lot of leverage with regulators. And if they're saying, here's what we can do to improve the economy, I mean, this platform alone to me could move GDP, like if done well at scale, and make property more of a liquid asset class, because it can transact so quickly and is more outside of the constraints of the public sector where they still use archaic systems. I think that will transform the landscape for property. It will take time, but I think they've got a lot going for them. If there was other startups trying to compete in that sector against Rightmove and these big major banks, I don't think they stand a chance. But because it's Rightmove and it's got these backers, I think they play enough weight with regulators and they've got enough market share with their brand that if they're talking about bringing together all of these different pieces in the puzzle that are so disjointed at the moment, as we've all experienced when buying property, then they're going to make a much more liquid marketplace, and that's very attractive for investors, home buyers, movers. I think it will change a lot, but that's my opinion.
Just to add my 2 cents in there, I think that this business is a great idea and it's needed in the market. I think the barrier for entry to actually be what the UK needs is so high. There's not one law firm that does all of the legal works in the UK. Homes England aren't going to invest in a startup like this. I feel that this is only going to become a successful business if 70 to 80% of the transactions in the UK, as a minimum, are done via this platform. So to get that herd of people on the platform is going to be so difficult, unless you've got Homes England backing, more government-led funding and even partnership, which I think is going to be difficult to get them on board because they're just so super slow and archaic. Believe it or not, I have a folder on my computer which is just called ideas, and I've got about 80 different business ideas, and this is kind of in there. I came up with an idea where when you buy a property, there's 20 documents, and what used to frustrate the hell out of me is the solicitor that's doing the selling side and the solicitor doing the buying side don't communicate what documents at what stage at any given time. So my idea was a Kanban board. Every document has a linear column. So you have the 20 documents, you have who edited it last and who's responsible for doing the next step of work. And then they go through every stage getting completed, and everyone has complete transparency with everyone. So the buyer, the seller solicitors and the buyer solicitors, the bank, whoever it may be. But to get that used is so difficult. The idea is the easy bit in this type of product and market, but to get it implemented is super difficult. If you look at the States, they've got a much better process. They use escrow accounts where money's locked in. You can view a house and buy it within 30 days very easily. And that's because they started that way. I think part of the issue is legacy in England. We've always done it this way. There's always been solicitors throwing, bits and bobs around. And just to be very, very selfish for a second, if I'm buying, I want that transaction to be almost as slow as possible, and I will use my solicitor to make that as slow as possible within reason, because I've got to close deal with the seller, I've got to close a deal with the investor, and I've got to close a deal with the bank, and I'm probably working on planning, and I'm probably working on building a build team in. From a selling perspective, I want to be that as quick as possible. So I would probably try and adopt this at the end of projects, but not at the beginning, if it was a thing. And I can't see in the next 25 years our process changing, if I'm honest.
I think it'd be a lot quicker than that, mate.
I definitely can. I think we're talking years. Like, this technology is moving so quick. And Stuart, I'll let you crack on, mate. Go.
I'm just going to say, I think that they need to really focus on the layer one and the infrastructure about bringing all these other digital parts in, because unless you get land registry on board, you can digitalize every deed, have everything sort of, if someone's focused on individual parts, then they're going to create the infrastructure for everyone to sort of feed their API into it, and it can be secured onto a blockchain. Then there is no reason why this won't come in the next 5 years, but they've got to throw a load of money in it, and they're going to need some heavyweights at the at Parliament.
And bear in mind the incentives from these banks: more fees, quicker fees, make more money. And they're the guys that move and lobby regulators. So I just think the incentives are aligned to speed up the transactions.
But I do agree. We've got a lot of regulation. So Stuart, I think they are building stage one, which is they're basically building like a kind of a CRM platform, maybe not CRM, but like more of that project management software that your deal goes in, and then everybody that's connected to it, the mortgage broker, the insurance broker, the estate agent, the blah blah, they're all connected to it, and then ultimately every property that we buy follows the same process. We all know what process it takes to buy a property or to sell a property, and it goes in a tracker and it gets updated along the way. But in my opinion, and I could be wrong here, I think that's already out there. So other than that, what they're saying and they're trying to do in terms of integrating and reducing that time to buy a property by bringing everything in like in one place and streamline. You have land registry to overcome. You have the solicitors regulator authority to overcome. You have the FCA to overcome. If information starts all going in one central place, other people can see it. Or kind of a lot of things that need to be adopted. Look, I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm just thinking that they're going to burn through so much money. My actual whole point of all of this was, I think this business is going to suffer, not that they're not going to pass it, but they're going to suffer from first mover disadvantage, in my opinion. Because if you do all that lobbying, you finally get the SRA on board and the FCA on board, and land registry on board, that opens up to the mass market, basically. Now, I know what you're saying about Rightmove, that if you do your deal through Rightmove, but unless Rightmove brings something in, like you have to use Rightmove, you have to use this software, like regardless. But I don't know how they can do that, to be honest with you. And Rightmove could actually only be partnering them for other information, if that makes sense.
I think it's a competitive advantage. I think if they make the process of buying a property much easier, then your average retail consumer is going to adopt it first and go, well, yeah, I'd rather use this because I can buy the house in such and such a time, or the average seller who needs to sell their house and get money out. And if they know it's suddenly a quicker process with a platform, the free market will speak and the competitor will win. And once Rightmove creates its one, then you're going to have Zoopla, and then it's a race to the bottom who can make the property transaction the quickest. And the technology is there. Like you guys have all pointed to, and I completely agree. It's the gatekeepers that are getting in the way, mostly from the public sector,
Yeah,
or from the
agreed.
government.
Agreed.
But they will move out the way, as they do with all other industries. Eventually they'll move, especially if such an innovation pleases the banks. Because if the banks can make more money, they can get more control. Bear in mind the control and the data and what they will capture, and how they can secure us even more into their net through a technology like this. Having all the title deeds, having everything in one place, I think is an advantage to the government and to the banks and to the consumer. I think.
I think the only way that it will work within the 25 years that I've mentioned, and we can, when we're all grey and old-ish, and watching back on episode 3, we can see who won the wager. But I think the only way they're ever going to get there is by mergers, because there's, I already know of a platform called Orbital Witness, which is an AI integrated conveyancing tool. So it's tech driven. They sell it into lawyers. Lawyers then use it to highlight. It reads thousands of documents, including covenants, restrictions, charges, rights of access, and condenses that for lawyers. That's one slice of 40. Then you've got, site insurance. Then you've got, does the OS map coordinates match up with the neighbouring properties and the title data? 30% of the titles in the UK aren't even registered. So all well and good. Let's get this tech. Then you've got to wait 6 months for a title to be registered. Oh, let's expedite it. It will take 5.5 months. I just think that we're in such a weird place with property purchasing in the UK. You're not trying to scale and grow a business solution. You're trying to completely change how we've been doing it for centuries. And I just think that the first start should be everything should be digital. And as soon as you overcome that, It then becomes a lot easier. If land registry started hiring to make sure every title was registered, we'd already have all of these in place today, and they could be digitalized, but they're not. We're still running off weird documents. And
I completely agree. I think me and Stu maybe are more on the optimistic side here, with what could happen with such a technology. But I think the AI and where it's going, and the technologies that will lead off of it, are optimistic, and they are game changing, and they are industry moving and industry shaping, as we're already seeing. ChatGPT came out and it undermined the entire educational system and the entire board of education overnight. You guys must know of all kinds of people at university and college who suddenly just could write all their dissertations and all their coursework using this one software. So I don't think it's unimaginable to think that within years it could happen.
So I was going to say, people like Jack in 2010 were saying the same thing about paper, maps, music, entertainment, education. All this stuff was going to take 25 years to do. And then 10 years later, boom, everyone's got a smartphone, then everything's digitalized. So it will come. It's just, and I think if everyone's working on everything all over the place all at once, then it's all going to come. And as soon as there's revenue and money and tokens and transfer of ownership and capital to be there, everyone will be on it. So
they did also say there'd be flying cars by now as well. So
well, they got drones, mate. We're almost there.
There we go. I was going to say, we've got autonomous drones.
But the reason why we don't have but I'm not saying, I don't think Jack's saying either, the technology is there. But what I'm saying, Stu, is even if you're right, they do have drones and they do have self-driving cars, but the UK laws do not allow them to be used for what people's visions, like in terms of transport. And that's going to be, leaseholds back in William the Conqueror in over 1,200 years. Our legal system is so old, so complex. We've got literally, sometimes you put up a deed and it's got something in there from 700 years ago. America wasn't even founded then. Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit different, but the technology's there. But these gatekeepers need to open the door for it to work, I say.
I think the technology and the businesses are there, and they're taking their own micro markets and doing what they need to do. I just can't see it all being on one platform for a very, very long time, maybe indefinitely. I think there's going to be supporting businesses that merge and create a good part for the front end, the conveyancing, document storing. We talked about, being compliant and keeping your documents digitalized. That needs to be starting. Our business in Central Suisse is completely paperless. If you try and explain that to my dad, who's one generation's difference, he can't even get his head around it. We don't have any paper. None whatsoever.
I had to help my dad. He couldn't pass ID verification on a remortgage because he did not have a smartphone. For these ID verifications now with smartphone, he didn't have a smartphone, and then the whole like process stopped. And I literally on the email said, "Can we do this the old-fashioned way, please?" And my dad then had to go to a solicitor with his documents and be certified and stamped. And then the rest of the app wouldn't work. So the whole ID check and everything had to be done the old fashioned way because he did not have a smartphone. It's crazy. It's funny.
Just to reiterate the point as well, I completely agree that the gatekeepers are in the way. However, there's points in time where technology meets with gatekeepers' incentives. And I think a technology like this incentivizes the banks, more transactions, more fees, more consumer data, incentivizes the government because of those same reasons, and more consumer data, valuable consumer data as well. And I think it will help boost the economy because we're creating a more liquid property market, which at the moment, the problem with the property market is how stagnant it is. But again, it's an opinion. Maybe we should all put a prediction on it. If you guys are saying 25 years,
Yeah.
I'm going to say 4. I'm going to say 4 years.
I'll say
4 years.
2030.
That's
2030.
4 years is nuts, right? No offense.
I'm not saying everyone in the country is going to use it, but I'm saying an all-in-one platform that can speed up a transaction to a matter of, let's say, 2-3 weeks. I think we're talking 4 years.
I'm going to go 2040. The loser has to buy dinner.
I'll go 2041.
Do you know how much that's going to cost us by 2040, mate? It costs us about
mate.
1,800 quid to go out for a dinner.
Yeah, innit?
But, well, again, Jack did mention your lifestyle, mate. You should come to Wales. Greg's is around the corner.
Well, apparently by that date, we're going up to Ryan because he's going to be building on Mars. So we'll probably have to go up there to see it.
Yeah, that's the point. I've got deadlines to meet, boys.
Just one thing to touch on and why I think I'm struggling to see the speed of this is any business has levers, and the levers are the things in the market that it needs to get to communicate. And I see this as a property transaction as an example. So you've got a seller, a valuer, a bank, a lawyer, a buyer. And it's the more streamlined the expectations are, or the value exchanges, the more likely transactions to go ahead. So in that example, we've got 5 levers. In this market, I believe we've got so many levers. So banks, solicitors, property owners, property buyers, compliance, the government, and all those levers need to be aligned. And the more levers you have in a business to be successful, the less likely it's going to be scalable, because you will always be dependent on one lever and you'll only hit a channel of scalability. If you hit the penultimate and you get all of the levers open, then it's a ridiculously successful and multipliable, scalable business. So for an example, and coming on to my goat later, there's 2 levers: product, buyer. That's it. That's the only 2 things that he has to deal with. So that's seller of his materials and buyer of the materials, and he's completely free market, 2 levers to negotiate with and create value in. And I think the more levers there are in any business model, the less successful or scalable or multipliable it is. So, I mean, that's why I'm struggling to get my head in it. It's not necessarily just the government or just the gatekeepers or just the lawyers. It's all of them collectively reduce the likelihood.
But if I could come back to my point just very quickly, it'll take me 1 second, because my whole point was, and this is for business owners listening to this podcast too, is for whatever business you're going to go into, if it's innovative, remember that there is a law called the first mover disadvantage. And one of the notable stories for that is we all know Visa today, and Visa and MasterCard and stuff like that, but the actual founding technology was Bank Americard in the 50s that actually failed but gave way to Visa, because in most businesses that set up that pioneer technologies, they typically fail. It's actually the second or third or fourth runners that, because a lot of that infrastructure is so expensive and can hinder you, that those second, third, or fourth runners actually it's one of them that typically capture it with very still expensive but lower cost to entry that's manageable, and then get the market swoosh.
Completely agree. MySpace, Bebo, Facebook, but Facebook was a third. Learn off the other 2. Completely agree with that.
And Amazon said, Jeff Bezos, his whole ethos now for Amazon, because it's so big, is what he's actually doing with Amazon, like web services, is laying the infrastructure and foundation for other companies and entrepreneurs. He said it in a podcast. All he thinks of as like Amazon now is about laying infrastructure for space, when he doesn't think that he will do it, but all the infrastructure they put in place is for those second, third, fourth, fifth runners that one of them will hit it just right.
And I'm that second runner, mate. Gonna be building on the moon, thanks to Jeff B. But yeah, look.
So real quick, did you want to move on? Because I was going to say, I think that would be really interesting to hear everyone's views on that rule for property developers and property investors like us. Why we're not first to the market. We're later adopters, but I think it's probably more micro than the macro picture that we're thinking of monopolizing in industries.
I'll give you an example with my business, a
Go on.
social house building partnership company. You know, some of the people I speak to think is innovative, unique, but I know, and would remind everybody, well, we're not the first to do this. It's been going on for so long, and et cetera, et cetera. But we're starting to get traction. We're starting to speak to investment banks and investment funders who really want to start potentially look to back us, and hopefully they do for our long. And as that comes forward, there's going to be something unique about us, which will be the big USP. But ultimately, other companies have paved this way already. Look at Vistry, you know, they're the biggest in the space, and there's been many others before. So we're definitely not, in my opinion, unique. We have unique selling points, and we have our own competitive advantage. But in terms of the innovation, it's not innovative, if that makes sense.
Every business is a repeat of a previous business done better. I mean, that's what we all do. I mean, everyone has done something previously that's been adapted, changed, and altered to make more revenue and more capital. It's just every business that's ever walked. I mean, there is innovators, and I understand about Bezos, you know, running his infrastructure down for parties to come along. But yeah, that's all business is. Every book I've read is about taking something and just putting your spin on it to make it more efficient, to make more capital. That's what
Would
the
you,
capital free market is.
Do you know what? So speaking of Bezos and Amazon, we were actually talking internally the other day, just because we now buy quite a lot of our second fix products off of Amazon, just better options. The lights that we just put in the office, we went to two electrical suppliers and we're like, yeah, it's good. Went on Amazon. On the first page, I found two things that were banging. Straight away bought them. They've gone in and they look sick. And I think Bezos and Amazon, they could quite easily, I say easily, loosely, build up a big material supplier depot and just tether that onto their existing system, and then suddenly we could be getting our supplies next day off of, you know, plasterboard, everything else in bulk off of Amazon. They've already got the infrastructure, they're just not tapped into this market as much. But then, you know, will they start swallowing up your Travis Perkins of the world? Do you know what I mean?
Builders merchants. They don't need the infrastructure. So maybe a guest for us on this podcast one day is a friend of mine is an Amazon reseller. I think he's in the top 50 sellers in the UK by revenue. So by no means feat a super successful guy and only in his early 30s. But he's got his own fulfillment center. So he buys his own product, he packages his own products, and he sells it on Amazon. They obviously take a cut for him to do all of that legwork. He also fulfills, which is bringing the materials in for other people because he's got the warehouse and the staff to do it, gets paid a cut for them, and Amazon benefit. And there's another supplier. So I think Bezos and Amazon don't need to do anything themselves. The platform's already there. Travis Perkins just need to adopt it. And coincidentally, talking of like adopting technology and, you know, Travis Perkins or a building merchant being on board with doing that, did you know that Amazon approached Toys R Us to digitalize their toys and they refused to do it? 6 years later, they went bust. And now Amazon are basically the Toys R Us of the world because they could survive and Toys R Us couldn't. So it's kind of, you've got to change to make it work. And I feel that builders merchants will have to do the same for the ease of you know, where Amazon is going.
It's like the Netflix Blockbuster story as well, but a notable one as well, Stuart, because I know you work with them and you're an advocate for Salesforce, but Salesforce was actually there was a CRM that failed before Salesforce, not by the same founder, but the founder was around the time when that technology was and it was also backed by Oracle, Siebel Systems, and it ended up failing. And that was before Salesforce as a CRM, one of the major CRMs, backed by Oracle, and it still failed. Whereas Salesforce was after that, leveraged from, made it better, and then exploded. So I think it's just for everybody listening, whatever idea you have that's more than likely not really unique now, there's a way to still make things better and succeed. If you are going to do something, though, that on the face of it is completely revolutionary and innovative, kind of like some of the prop tech we've seen today, that's where I'm saying there is a law called the first mover disadvantage, where sometimes these completely innovative and revolutionary technology, they are so cost prohibitive in terms of infrastructure that normally once you finally get it working, that infrastructure does not have to be repeated again by newcomers. it's already established and you can leverage off it. So unless you're protecting yourself as you go by completely exclusive partnerships and patents that nobody else can copy, so that infrastructure gap still remains just as high, I would personally wait and let somebody else revolutionize, and I would come in as that bulldog and smash them out the park, basically.
I wouldn't want to go to war with Dorian then. You want someone else to stick their head above the parapet. And,
You go
they
first,
can get
boys.
blown to pieces first. Exactly. Sorry, Jack. Go on, mate.
Yeah. But all I was going to say, Dorian, is completely get your point. I think they're more, larger industry businesses that we're discussing here. We're entrepreneurs. We don't wait. Your terminology there, wait. I don't believe you should wait. Maybe you should go into a subsector that supports the bigger dream and the bigger vision first, and make a profitable, scalable enterprise out of that.
That was only for revolutionary stuff. We're not doing anything revolutionary. HMOs, SA, buy-to-let, portfolio building, developments, all have slightly unique stuff that we're doing, but nothing revolutionary. We're building, all four of us are building in the same way they built, 50, 60, 70, 100 years ago with the masonry builds. So that's only for revolutionary stuff. But because we're not in that, so we can go as fast as we can.
I don't know if you can draw that parallel though, quite as sweepingly, just because, yes, I agree with some parts of what you're saying there. However, the way we go about raising finance now because of digitized aid with our businesses, I think Jack just said everything's paperless. It's kind of like that taking what you've just said, it's kind of like saying, well, we all still talk and communicate like we've done that for thousands of years, but actually now we can do it at lightning speed all around the world instantaneously. Jack's in Peru right now, and we're all doing this podcast. So I do think
it's quite
speed,
amazing, that is, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I think speed is a metric. There he is.
Yeah.
I think you can revolutionize an industry with speed. It doesn't necessarily have to be a new way of doing things. It can just be a quicker way of doing things. I mean, what's the terms people use is quicker, better, cheaper. Those are the three metrics, and they in themselves can revolutionize.
Golden triangle, that is speed, quality, and price. If whatever business you go into, if ideally 2 out of the 3, but sometimes just 1, never really all 3. But if you can nail, I don't know why I'm still doing this, but if you can nail 2 out of the 3, yeah, I know. Speed, quality, price. It's yeah. Then you should be. You've got a grounds for good business.
I think the rule of thumb is if you're doing one of the 3, someone doing 2 of the 3 will overtake you very quickly. Yeah. We had a Chinese contractor on that's where I'm coming on to, Stu. We had a Chinese contractor on one of our building sites, came in well on the price, and her tagline was, the triangle of speed, quality, time, and cost. She said, we're all 3. Turns out the quality wasn't quite there, but their opinion was they were all 3, which is comical.
The eternal triangle.
And so before you move on, it's a great book, Only the Paranoid Survive, basically. And what that's saying is, Jack and Stuart and Ryan, you're all right. In today's world, even more so because of technology as well, it's only getting faster. So if you're in a business model, you've got to remember that actually it's worse today to be a business owner, in my opinion, than 50, 60 years ago. The opportunities there, but the competition now is global or at least nationwide. And it's so competitive that you actually have to be paranoid to survive.
It's always a double-edged sword. If it's better for you to do business now, well, it's better for everyone else as well. So you have to start thinking better. And I think that's where IQ or just general intelligence starts to, that's what favors the winners. We got to move on though, because we've dragged a bit on this one. So let's get to questions. Questions quickly, boys. All right, so what we'll do, we've taken some questions from the audience. So thank you, audience. Anyone asking questions in our YouTube comments and our Instagram, we will try and every week do a section where we answer some of these questions. So please do keep engaging, drop us comments. If you want us to answer them, then that is the best way to do it. So let's bring some up on screen and we will relatively quick fire. So just anyone who's got a good response quickly. So that'll be probably Dorian for all of these. Dorian, actually no, Dorian, one of these is deliberately for you, so we'll get to that. So Dunkstable on YouTube, thank you for your comment. Really great stuff, guys. Listening and plastering my own kitchen extension, chippy by trade, and has got my mind racing. Would love a rundown on further reading, listening, and reading. that all the reference in the spirit of self-learning and perhaps a chat about raising funding for a project, smaller startup, getting going size, and how to structure that deal. Going back to listen again now and take notes once my plastering dries. I think that's quality. Someone was listening whilst killing time whilst plastering their kitchen at sick. But I suppose his question in a nutshell is, so raising capital for a project or a business, let's say a project, small size. What's the 101? What's the 101? Who wants to answer?
Should I give it a go? I
Give
mean,
it a
I'll
go.
try and make it as short and sweet as possible. And love it, Dunstable. I was a chippy, predominantly second fix chippy by trade as well, and now it's plaster as well. So we've got a lot in common. So funding deals, for me, they're always very similar. A few rules of thumb that I use is you've always got to be capital raising. And if you find a good deal, that tends to help the capital raising significantly, because a good deal will raise the right finance. If it's a shit deal and you're shit at capital raising, you're going to really struggle to find the money. If you're shit at one of those, you still might be able to find the money. So rule number one, always try and be out on the look for equity. I would always recommend you start with a size that you are capable with. For some people that have years of experience working in large professional businesses, they can start with bigger projects. We've got an Irish friend of ours who was delivering infrastructure projects, and if you throw him a 150 unit scheme, it'll be like water off a duck's back. I started with individual units at a time, which sounds like it might be a good size for you to sort of live and breathe that type of project. So start with what you're capable with. The capital raising, we have a rule of thumb that we tend to need to raise, as a rule of thumb, 50% of the purchase price in cash investment to do the project end to end. And the way that it's normally structured is you buy the site with the bank and investment. That investment could be you, an investor, a third party, a high net worth, it could be mezzanine finance, it could be even third party finance beyond that. And again, the way that it's structured is quite typically in our scenario that it's 50-50 split. So the investor gets 50% of the profits and you get 50% of the profits for delivery. We like structuring things in a limited company. So set up a limited company, find the investment, find the deal, and then raise the development or bank finance. The reason we like working with banks on first charge debt is because they tend to be cheaper than personal finance. And it means that your return on cash is higher if you leverage it with banks. But leverage is something you need to read into and make sure that you're comfortable doing that on the projects that you're delivering, because there is risk associated to that. And they take a first charge and the investment takes a second charge. And then essentially we deliver the project, exit the project, and pay the bank back, pay the investor back, and then hopefully there is some profit for you to split. That's kind of a summary. I'm sure there's loads of little nuggets that the rest of the team can sort of touch on.
I'd add just one more simple thing. Jack's given a really good run through there on the sort of the structure and how it works end to end. I'd say if you're just looking to get money initially and you've got no existing database of clients or significantly wealthy people that you can think of on the top of your head, then start with just the people you know: mum, dad, uncle, auntie, friend, neighbor. I know, Stu, you raised off a neighbor, haven't you? We've raised off of friends,
cousin, family, dad, and exactly what I was saying. That's my opinion as well. Just raise off everyone you know, give them a real nice return, fix the 10, 12, 15% return, make sure you build it into your numbers, buy it, build it. Really look at the new PD rules that are potentially coming out about taking one dwelling, split into two, buy in an area where you're going to get good capital return on both of them. And if you're a chippy and plasterer by trade, you're perfect, because as long as you've got the grit and the go, you'll get it done. You'll dig deep, you work Saturdays and Sundays to get it done, but just build in their return and just give them a fixed rate and do 4 or 5 of them. And by the time you've done them, you'll be ready for HMOs and commercial to resi before you know it.
And definitely start with something low risk. Don't go into anything crazy if it's your first one. But if you are a chippy by trade, then as Stuart says, you're going to have a good bit of site knowledge. And that's really a unique advantage, because there's quite a few people that come into the sector with no construction or no experience whatsoever. I am one of those people, and you get your hands torn straight off. So if you've got some site experience, look at a refurb or a quick flip, something like that, and speak to friends and family to find the money.
I would also say, touching on your network, if you're struggling to find the capital within that, let's say 30 to 50 people that might have that money to do that project, if they turn around and say, it's not for me, not the right time, don't like the sound of it, ask for their for any instructions via them. If they recommend at least 3 people, you've then got 3 times the amount that you've originally gone to. It's a spider web effect on investment. We do that all the time. And then one thing I would say, which Ryan reminded me of, is for an example where Ryan said you're a chippy, you're probably good on site. Always think about your competitive advantage in the market, and that will help you buy stuff that you will be able to create more value than someone else. So our business, we don't have construction in-house. Therefore, something that's fully consented, no value add, just needs delivering is not our bag of scheme. We need to add value in the acquisition, the design, the planning, and then the construction is outsourced to a JCT contract. So just to sort of try and hammer home, the best way to find a deal that works for you is lean on your competitive advantage as best you can. So that might be, if you're a chippy and you know how to cut a roof, that might be a building where there's been damp egress around a chimney and you need to remove both the chimneys and re-roof the roof, and you need to recut the roof and then re-roof it. You will be able to do that cheaper and more effectively and understand it better than anyone else. So that would be a good project for you. A project that's, potentially service accommodation rental when it's completely finished is probably not the best bag for you, because you're technically then just an SA operator. So understand your competitive advantage.
Yeah, great points. And sorry, Dorian, I'll move on to the next one, but this one's going to come to you, I promise. So hopefully that's useful for you. Dunks the Bull. So shout out Tyler Newman. Mr. Newman
Tyler
said, Dorian, you go first, mate. If you wanted to get to 10K a month from scratch, how would you do it?
I would pretend to be Tyler Newman on Instagram and sell a course. Yeah, I mean, look, if I was to start again, I think I mentioned it before. If I was to start again from and I wanted to get the 10,000 a month from scratch, how would I do it? Now, sorry, I hate doing this, but I've got a short answer and a long answer, and I just want to set the parameters here, because without sounding big-headed, we're all the same. But in terms of today, with my level of kind of knowledge, expertise, and track record and stuff, if I wanted to get to 10,000 a month, and that was my only goal, I would literally just do some form of course or round table, and I would just get the numbers in that way. I'm not saying it would be tremendously easy, but in a short space of time, I would highly, like to think that I could get 10,000 a month. I did it. Yeah. Anyway, but if I was to start, that's not really much value. But if I was to start from scratch with no experience and no contacts and no track record, obviously that's where it becomes a little bit more tricky. For me, how I would do it, and I'm biased here, but ultimately I would do something along the lines of I would get my land knowledge I've got a couple of ideas. One, I would get my land knowledge up to speed. I would understand first, do I have any resources? If I have no resources whatsoever, I would ultimately get a part-time job, and so I could actually get I could get some income coming in. If I did have some savings, and there's no shame about having a job whilst going into business or building a property. In fact, it's the responsible thing to do. Just make sure you pick the right job that gives you either industry experience or sufficient time for you to invest all the rest of your time into a business. But I would get my personal cash flow sorted out via either a part-time job or something like that, or some form of freelance work with one of my skill sets. And then I'd spend every other waking hour, mornings, afternoons and evenings and weekends in business mode. And what I would do is I would spot a gap in the market where I could add value quite easily on a recurring basis to get 10K a month. One of the first things that come to my mind, and I know I said it on a previous podcast, a different idea, but I'll go with this one today, is I would invest time in building my land knowledge and working out what good deals are and great deals. And I would target construction businesses that want to get into development and try to get onto retainer with them, but introducing them either money or deals. Because Jack mentioned it before, you should always be raising money. You should always be looking for deals. You'll find that people very rarely are very good at both of them. You can be decent, but I'm talking about being very good. If you're very good at even one of them, you can find somebody that isn't, that already has a business that needs that, and you can get onto a retainer service with them. And I would do that. It'd be a retainer service plus, so it's cash flow plus a success fee. That's what I would do. Whether it's a development company looking to raise money, or whether it's a construction company looking to find deals to go into development. Obviously, I'm biased because I already know how to do that. I'm trying to picture if I didn't, that is a difficult one. But I put the floor over to you guys, really.
I think my answer is quite simple. If I was starting out property, no knowledge, nothing else, and I just wanted to get into property, first thing I'd do is sourcing. I just source little buy-to-lets, HMOs, little flips, and then sell them for, start at say 1,500 to get your foot in the door. Then maybe 2, maybe 3 grand. Good HMOs you can maybe do for 5 grand. Then you should be at a point where if you could sell just a few of those a month, you'll get 10K turnover, but you'll be working like a motherfucker. So But I'd say if you want to get to 10K quick, that's probably the quickest way to do it.
I'll dive in. So there's two things here. I think that having a target, I know that Tyler probably gets asked this. This is probably the most asked question that he gets. And I think it's a good question because it sort of drives conversations like these. But in my opinion, I think it's quite a narrow-minded question, because you shouldn't be focusing on creating 10K a month essentially just forever, unless that's your particular goals. I think anyone listening to this podcast or anyone that follows Tyler, it wants to be an influential entrepreneur and make change and impact in the period of time that they are on this earth, whether that be for whatever reasons they have it. So there's two things that I would like to touch on. One, I would say that whatever you're doing to create £10,000 per month, make sure that's fed into your 10-year goals, and make sure that whatever is creation of the £10,000 per month feeds into the bigger goals, because you may find that you set up a hair salon and now you want to do developments and they don't communicate or operate very well. So I'd make sure that those two business plans operate in tangent. For me personally, what would I do if I could start all again from scratch? Believe it or not, it's similar to what these guys have said. It's in property. I would do flips. So in Central Suites, which is mine and my brother's business, we do about 8 projects a year. About of the 8, 4 of them are flips. We average about 75K net profit per deal. I could easily manage 2 of those, working 30 hours a week, making about 120 to 150K net per annum, only having to raise 150K per deal in investment finance. And that for me would be a good stepping stone to lead on to much bigger and better things. There's good money to be made in those. Imagine working 30 hours a week, just 2 little house refurbs that you're delivering, building that scalable model. Obviously, we've expanded the team. That comes at a cost, and then those profits go into the team because we're getting to the next size. But you could do that as a standalone person with consultants doing the majority of the work. And that is exactly what I would do.
Stuart?
I would do exactly what we've done with the HMO model. I would learn how to do HMOs off YouTube. You don't have to go and pay thousands of pounds for a course. You need to learn how to raise money.
Except for my course.
Except for Rye's course, which
Yeah.
I'm still looking for my free ticket, mate, so I can
Get your discount.
have a little look. Yeah, discount. I would do HMOs all day long. I'd learn how to do them, learn how to raise capital, buy in decent, high cash flow in areas, and literally aim to make £2,000 profit per month per property, and spend the next 3-4 years doing that. Before you know it, you'll have that money coming in, no problemo.
Let's put some pressure on it though. Imagine if you had no money and you had bills, commitments, and kids. What would you do now?
Sourcing. I'd still do sourcing. I think if it's just to get to 10K as quick as possible turnover, I think within 3 months you could do that if you are tenacious and you go and haggle.
But what would you do with that baseline cash flow you needed anyway on a month-by-month basis? Were you saying you'd have a job whilst you sourcing?
Oh, right. To cover your base, yeah, you're going to need a part-time job and squeeze this in your spare time, aren't you? That is, if you got monthly outgoings that you can't pay for, then yeah, you're going to need to hustle 2 jobs. But look, that's probably what all of us did to get started, right? You hustle in many things to just get momentum. As you get momentum, you follow sort of Jack's route, where you could start building and then forward funding into staff and bits and bobs, and you can start building it up. But
I think that's the key thing there. If we're all in agreement that if you had nothing and you had bills and commitments, these strategies we just talked about there, they are after your job, part-time or full-time job. I.e., it comes back to that message as, you literally have to, all your mornings, your evenings and weekends need to be absolutely dedicated to what is a typical working week for Jack, which is not normal for hardly anyone else. That's what you have to sustain for could be over a year, really, couldn't it, to get that coming in consistently and sustainable. And that's where people don't really want to do it, do they, when it comes down to it? I know people I've met for years that still haven't done much, and they want to still. They're not really doing anything about it.
there's a lot of people who talk and won't do the sacrifice.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been told you're either born with it or you're not. So you can give them all the tools and information and resource that they need to do it, but at the end of the day, it's down to them.
On that one, D, I mean, I think I'm highly energetic and highly ambitious and driven, and yet I still can't be asked to go and do land sourcing. I know how you do it. I've got Nimbus Map, so I know how to go and find the land. I want to find a family home in a certain area. I can't bring myself to spend 20, 30, 40, 50 hours to get all the letters out to do it. I'd rather just pay someone 10, 15, 20 grand through a business structure to go and do it for me. So if you've got the hours to blaze doing it, then yeah, but there's a lot of speculative time spent on those deals to
Yeah,
get a 10, 15 grand deal, especially if you're trying to find someone who wants that particular product you're trying to find for them.
Sorry, I'm
So
going to cut
are
you off,
you
Jack.
still
I'm going to cut you off just to move on to the next question. So sorry.
But
'Cause I know
Stuart there is a prime example for a retainer. Stuart, all retainer service, £500 a month, and we'll
Dorian, you're going to be
find you that
muted.
dream plot.
All right, one word answers, guys. One word answers just for this question. Tyler's asked another one. Commercial conversions or ground up? Personally, commercial conversions.
Commercial conversions for me.
Ground up, baby.
both?
Anything.
Both.
Jack will take anything.
Next one. Most recommended book. Start with Dorian. Go up.
Scaling up.
The Compound Effect for me, I think, if I was going to choose one book. It depends on where you are as well. That's a really good book. If you're starting out, read that. It will really, the E-Myth Revisited, I still love it. It's one of the books that stuck with me since forever, because it sort of breaks down the whole process of being a technician, a manager, an entrepreneur, and really sort of breaks your mind into certain areas to know what tasks are important. So if you're starting out, definitely read that book and just come to terms with those 3 different titles.
Jack, what would you say?
Definitely understanding yourself first. Like the E-Myth is all about management, scalability, and business models. But for me, it's Your Life, Your Legacy by Roger Hamilton, where he analyzes your psychometric testing as an individual so that you can put yourself in the most effective and powerful position within the business and a resource around that. I think that's really, really powerful book to have in your wheelhouse.
Oh, and if you're a raging alcoholic and you need some time out of life, another real good book is called This Naked Mind by Annie Grace, which is very much focuses on a city worker, works very, very hard, drinks every day of the week, and she sort of takes you through her life of becoming an alcoholic, and you sort of see alcohol for what it is from her perspective. So that's another good book if you've got a problem.
Mine would be if it's one book, I'd say Something from Nothing, Lawrence Krauss. It's the fundamental laws of our universe and how things are built up from the atoms, and how from back at the Big Bang there was actually something. Nothing has a residual value. There is something in nothing, and that's it helped me when I was younger come up with the understanding that the world can be broken down into its constituent parts, into basic principles, and those things can be used like atoms are to build the world around us. So it's a good fundamental way to sort of understand things, I think.
Can I just add one in from the last topic of building to 10K a month? Because I think it's a really useful book for that answer, is a book called Bilt to Sell. And it's all about building a business that doesn't need you in it. And that type of business is the sort of 10K a month. I think if you're trying to scale to a 10K a month business, read that book and it will make everything a lot clearer.
And the lean startup. If you're gonna read a book to start a business, it's I agree with Jack's suggestion, but also the lean startup as well, because a lot of people go in and start making decisions on current expenses they just don't need to do.
One of the first books I read before starting my own business, but actually I was in the band at that point, and I read, it's Eric Rye's, isn't it, The Lean Startup? I think it is. And I read that and just went, oh yeah, minimum viable product and all the other bits and bobs. Very good book. All right, Dorian, this one's for you. So Sovereign Architect. Oh, sorry, who asked the book question? PR Homes Direct. So thank you, PR Homes Direct, for your question. And then Sovereign_Architect asked, how do your conversations with housing associations start when you're looking to forward sell? I have no idea, no input to add here.
Okay, cool. So ultimately, what we do first thing is we do market research first. So we actually research that all the different housing associations before we even speak to them, to understand what area do they operate in, what's their house building targets, what do they look for, what's their past projects look like, who's and then we build our own picture, and then basically we would ring them or the development team, which on their website or on LinkedIn, or nowadays really through an intro connection. That's how we do it. But if I was to start fresh, it would be that I'd do my research first, then I'd literally ring them, either ring the office and ask to be put forward to the development team, or go on Google and type in the housing association and type in development manager or head of development, and that comes up, or go on their website and some of them will have them on there in terms of development team. I then pick up the phone and say, hi, my name's Dorian Payne. I'm managing director of a company called Cash South Group, and I have a site in this area. I think it's for this amount of homes that we believe we could put on there. I see that you're an active and developing RP or HA. Would you be interested in it? And then they would either say yes or no, but ultimately that's not where you get the decision from. It's getting that foot in the door, and it's more like, oh, right, okay, well, this is the right person you need to speak to, or it might happen to be speaking to the right person. And then it's about getting on the phone with the right person and then asking them questions, because really it's not really about the site I've just asked them for. When I'm on the phone with them, I actually switch it very quickly to be saying, okay, so what areas you develop in, what do you typically develop, what does it look like, how do you work with developers, is it mainly social rent or affordable housing, how does that work viability wise, talk me through the process, what approvals do you need, how long does it take, blah blah. And then, because they don't mind answering questions when you're on there, and then I would feed back in the opportunity. All right, this one maybe not good for you, but I've got this one coming up. I'll bring back to you. What do you need from me? X, Y, and Z. Then all of a sudden, you've got to ask the questions on the phone to the right person. They're all going to have a slightly different way of working, and you've got to build that picture. Now you've got the direct contact. You've asked all the questions. You know what to go and look for. Voila.
What a golden nugget.
That is a golden nugget. Just to add to that, Dorian, do you want to just give a quick one-liner on what your business does?
Castle Group is a high impact partnership company which specialises in social and affordable housing. We're currently based in South Wales, but very soon we are securing funding from an investment bank to go national.
Nice. So yeah, Dorian is the best person to answer that question.
Dorian, you started talking, mate, and it's a Friday afternoon. I would grab my pen to start writing notes down, like I do when we're together, and then realise it's being recorded and stop writing. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, I think actually, Jack, you do stuff in the social housing space as well. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so where Dorian and I differ drastically is Dorian sells the site before it's been delivered, and then has the contract arm to deliver the product for the RP or the housing association. We don't exit to housing associations or RPs. We work on a lease-based model. And what that means is we buy the asset, we renovate the assets. We actually do renovations, refurbishments, and conversions, whereas Dorian does predominantly, I think, everything pretty much within reason. I've seen a couple of your sites, but they're all pretty much new build.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. Whereas we do existing building conversions. So we're actually spending 25k a unit converting a disused care home, B&B, old HMO to some semi-self-contained apartment studios. So we buy the asset, renovate the asset, fill it with the housing association on a 25-year lease, then refinance it onto a cheaper product like Hampshire Trust Bank, Shawbrook, etc. And then when we exit our portfolio one day, we sell the income to a pension fund or a big investment company or someone that wants to buy the 25-year guaranteed income off the basis of universal credit, paying the rents via the council, via the housing association, via to us. So technically the RP or the HA is our tenant, and our exit is actually more institutional markets. But to actually answer the question that was answered, it's really difficult to start conversations on a lease-based position because every residential landlord wants a residential asset with a commercial lease. And that's what we do. 25-year full repairing lease, inflationary linked to local housing allowance, and it's paid on time every day. Yes, it's below market rent. So everyone wants that. So every developer that's got stock in their portfolio would love to have it on a 25-year full repairing lease, which Stuart touched on, really loving the fact that commercial is, an easy asset to manage. I think you can have 1,000 commercial properties and it still be less work than 100 resi properties because that's the nature of the leases. So it's difficult to break down those barriers, but essentially it's similar to what Dorian said: pick up the phone, start networking. That sounds like Wolf of Wall Street, but you've just got to get out there and communicate with the right. It's a people's business. You've got to get in front of the right person. I was always told in my sales role, the way to break down any business is MAN, the man, the money, the authority, and the need. If you speak to that person, you will get the deal closed. If they are not the money and they are not the authority and they have not got the need, you will not get the deal closed.
Great insights there, Sovereign Architect. I hope that's been helpful for you. Now we're going to move on to the next part of the pod. We're actually sticking to our schedule, which is great. And this is now Ground Up Goats. So shout out Jack, count the name, I believe. Ground Up Goats. So this is going to be us. We might feature this a couple times where we just talk about key figures or people that inspire us individually, or who we think are, market movers or market shapers. Significant people at the top of their field. So Stuart, do you want to start?
I don't mind, mate. Yeah. So my guy, who I have only recently, in the last sort of 3 years, I've really admired and listened to lots, and he's called Michael Saylor. American. I was just trying to work out what his company is because it's called MicroStrategy, and I think they work in like the space, cleaning data and stuff, working for these big organizations. But
They're
ultimately,
a securities solution, aren't they? Technology security solution, like an Oracle competitor.
Oh no, cool, exactly. Yeah, so that's what his business was. He's a self-made billionaire to start with. He is a true philanthropist. I mean, he set up Sailor.org, which was set up in 2008. So before he actually got into effectively Bitcoin, which is why I love him for it. But effectively, he's created a platform where it's completely free education for everyone around the world. Which you don't have to pay any money to learn this stuff. So anyone can effectively go on there and get a university degree effectively. He puts his money where his mouth in, as he's adopted the Bitcoin standard, which is where he's sort of taken all of his money off of the banking system, and he's put everything, all of his assets, and actually built his whole share structure into Bitcoin. So if you invest in his company, you're basically buying a part of the Bitcoin network. He personally owns about 17,000 Bitcoin as well. So it's going to become, I think, one of the most valuable company on the planet. And I think over the next sort of 15 years, it's going to happen. And you can learn a lot about it. He wrote this book called The Mobile Wave, which in 2010, if you go back to 2010 and think about where the world was going, how mobile intelligence will change everything. And he sort of broke down, how paper, like we just said, we're a digital office. No one uses paper anymore. If you go back sort of 15 years, this stuff was just everywhere. Maps, everyone used to have a to Z in their car. Now it's just done on a touch of a button. The music, entertainment. But he sort of had the foresight to see where this digital age was going. And now obviously he sees Bitcoin as the new digital currency and the digital wallet that's going to become Web3 and effectively will run the world. And he also done a really good podcast series with a guy called Robert Breedlove it was a Sailor series, and it was about the Stone Age and Iron Ages of humanity from the earliest point right the way through to now, and it really breaks down where the system of money and where humanity's gone. There's about 20 hours. It's well worth watching. And I think when you're in the car driving or in the shower or before you fall to sleep, listen to a bit of it and just let your brain go into where he's seen us as humans and where we're going. And I think you'll get a much better perspective on him. So fair play to him. Really good guy. So definitely worth investing in some time to learn what he stands for.
Yeah, I completely share all those views on Sailor. Massive love for Sailor. And also, I'm just glad that third episode and we've got a hat trick. We've mentioned Bitcoin again. So happy days, boys. All right, Dorian, what are you saying? Who's your favorite geezer or gal?
Yeah, sure. So I've got lots, but we're keeping it to one, and the one I've picked at the moment is for this episode is Mr. Beast, and the reason why is because ultimately the story is very inspiring, and young guy, 26 I think he is now, but ultimately started his YouTube career in 2012 and had to keep at it, consistently with hardly any results for a good solid 5 years before actually going viral. So that's the key thing about Mr. Beast. We all see him now with this, $500 million net worth and hundreds of millions of subscribers, but ultimately, it was 5 years of just graft with hardly any results from it before he actually got viral and just trialing lots of things. And the other reason really why I'm putting that is because his goal is similar to mine in a way, is that his goal is to make as much money as possible and then give it all away doing what he loves to do. Really, that's why he reinvests so much into his videos. I'm not building this business for personal wealth or personal money, but I need to build personal wealth and make as much money as possible so I can do what I want to do, which is make the biggest impact possible by putting all those chips and reinvesting them all back in without even worrying if it pays off or not, but just trying to do the things that I love to do, which is invest in businesses and invest in people. And I want an entrepreneurs university. I want scouts all across the world finding great people. I want to have such a big network, and that's what I want to do. So the reason why I picked that is because kind of he's doing what I want to do, but in a different field. Does that make sense?
He's a modern day competitor to a Disney, and I think he's building like a huge entertainment business, and it's undermining a lot of the market incumbents. He's a fascinating guy. Jack, what are you saying
About Mr. Beast or my?
Yeah, go on. You like Mr. Beast?
Yeah, I like that we referenced that he looks a lot like Dorian. I think that's probably the best thing for me.
Wow.
He does.
He's richer than me at the moment, though. So
I like how you slipped in at the moment, Dorian. I've got faith in you.
Well, of course, mate. You've always got to believe in yourself, haven't you?
Go on, Jack. Who's your guy?
My guy is, I think, probably quite an obvious one, but I think if you looked into the detail behind the guy, the individual, what an inspiration he can be to the young hungry UK entrepreneur is actually Ben Francis, the founder of Gymshark. He essentially came from nothing. He bought his first sewing machine with savings of £1,000 and started off a business in actual supplements. Then he realized he couldn't afford the stock, so he instigated drop shipping. So he was selling the stock before he actually took it in. I mentioned to you about business and levers. That's cutting out levers in the middle. You're essentially providing a service from one source. But some other cool things about Ben and himself. If you just Google billionaires 2024 on Forbes, there's a list of 25 billionaires that are all under the age of 33. And Ben Francis is on that. And he's one of the only on that list that is self-made, and he's British, and he's 31, and he likes, it's, for me, that just sets him aside a lot. There's, there's people on there there's some chap on there that's worth 4.4 billion from weapons. So obviously, when you look at a international perspective, is extremely unique. But a lot of the people, I believe, actually one other from that 25 list is self-made. Everyone else is family inheritance, legacy, generational wealth, or generational foot up in different businesses. So it's very difficult to start a business from scratch, especially in such a competitive industry of clothing and fitness wear, to then take it to be in the Forbes under 33-year-old billionaires in the world. He was working at Pizza Hut back in 2012 when he started off his business. It's actually admirable what he's done. And one of the things that I like most about him is he's very humble. And I think that's super important, and why I aspire to deliver a business the way he has. He went into a CEO role in his business and found out that his ego put him in that position. He wasn't the best person for that business in that role. So he then promoted himself to head of marketing. And then he now knows that him in that position is where he's most effective in talking about your life, your legacy, and your wealth dynamics, and where you fit in a business. I think is hugely admirable.
One other thing as well, just for the podcast listeners, which I know we all know, but I still find fantastic. Obviously, I've read about Jeff Bezos and stuff, but if you type it on Google, relentless.com, it forwards you to Amazon, because ultimately, which I find that so cool. I know it's a relatively cheesy thing, but ultimately he got the URL relentless.com and is a forward into Amazon, because ultimately business is just absolutely, you've got to be relentless. What is just constant relentless, and all of the people we've mentioned, are just the one thing they have common is just relentless.
I'm not sure if you mentioned it already, Jack. Sorry if you did, but Ben Francis also actually has a YouTube channel where he's vlogged some of those key moments, where he demoted himself from CEO. And it's quite fascinating insights, quite transparent. Cool business, cool guy. Right, myself, I have picked Ray Kurzweil as basically because of the current times we're in. Like you all, there's so many people you could pick, but Ray Kurzweil is a computer scientist, futurist, transhumanist, a load of ists, not trans as in cut your cock off, trans as in transforming human beings into a new kind of species, as a speciation event. And that's very much at the forefront of his mind, artificial intelligence being at the forefront. He's famously had many predictions about where the world's going because of technology. And he's 86% accurate as the statistics on his predictions. He predicted when Kasimov, the chess player, would get beaten by a computer, and a whole load of other things. His big prediction has been 2029 is the singularity moment for AGI, and he predicted that in 99. So 30 years out, no one believed him. Everyone thought it was 100, 150 years. No one thought ChatGPT would come as early as it did in the field. And Ray has been pretty much bang on so far. So he thinks by 2029, there will be, and the data supports it, there will be an AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, i.e. a machine that is smarter than a human being, or really the sum of human intelligence. And if you look at AI closely, he's really not far off. That's a singularity moment, and that's a speciation event, I think, because we'll have no choice but to join artificial intelligence, which is where other companies, and look what Elon's doing, Neuralink, and all these ways of the transhumanist side of it, where we can use and aid technology to help prolong human life. He talks about hitting the longevity escape velocity at 2030 as well, where we will prolong human life longer than we are living it at the moment. We prolong human life about 4 months out of 12. By 2030, that will be 13 months out of 12. Therefore, we become an immortal race. And that is very much a speciation event. Ray Kurzweil is at the cutting edge of all of this. Fascinating person to listen to, fascinating companies and innovations that he's come up with. He's coined as the modern day Edison. And yeah, the shit he's done is crazy, but I just love how current his topics are, because it really is, we're entering a time where artificial intelligence, a singular technology, is going to transform the landscape of everything. It's a general purpose technology. It's not just it's not just a singular function. It will transform the whole world and how we interoperate. So yeah, if you're out there and you've not heard of Ray Kurzweil, definitely go and listen to him. Fascinating guy to listen to, and study some of the technology that he's currently working on. Nanotechnology is another one he's looking at as well, to augment the immune system to make us immortal to any disease. And he thinks that's all coming by 2030, which is around the corner. So yeah, that's my guy, Ray Kurzweil.
Didn't Elon predict that we would have basically AI smarter than a human by this time next year?
Yeah, I mean, it's
funny.
Some think it's coming sooner.
It's funny though, because if you actually read Elon's stories and himself as well, in their factory, Tesla's Gigafactory, the thing I like about Elon is, which I recommend with everyone's approach, and I agree, technology and AI is coming and is advancing, and really the opportunities are going to come from how can we leverage that. Really, what can we do to harness it to create opportunities? But ultimately, in their factory, whilst most of it is automated, they actually went through and his other businesses and worked out which machines couldn't do the job as fast or as efficient as a human, and they actually went in and ripped those machines out and re-implemented human jobs, because some of these what we can do very easily with our fingers and like turning screws, robots find incredibly difficult and time consuming to do. So I'm doing it
Just
again.
real quickly, did you realise when you said turning screws, Ryan actually opened his bottle of
Yeah,
water?
no, look at that. Look at that. That's so funny.
Weird.
So the moral of that story, is that we should all listeners be looking to implement new technologies and adopting AI, but don't forget that it isn't just a blanket approach to everything. It's our jobs to work out what is most efficient, and it could even be humans and some old-fashioned techniques still, and that's absolutely fine. Our job is to just streamline our systems as best as we can.
Yeah, I'm reading Elon's book at the moment, getting towards the back end of it, and there's a fascinating part where he talks about it's an algorithm that he uses for all of his businesses to delete as much as possible out of your systems until you're at a point where you need to re-add. And if you've not got to the point where you need to re-add those systems, you're not deleted enough. It's a fascinating way to go about his systems, and he does it in a very quick succession. He'll rapidly go, right, get rid of this, question everything. Why is it there? Why is the regulator said that? Question the regulator. Everything's up for question.
Right, just quickly on that one, I've done that through Skyloft. So when we built Salesforce, you have the freedom to add everything. So you add everything and then you scrape everything out and you go, I don't need any of this stuff. What's the action off the back of collecting that data? You scratch it all out until mistakes happen, then you add more stuff in, and it's a constant, it's a constant moving target, just taking stuff out, but adding new systems and stuff. But boys, anyway, I really need to get on the road. Talking about AI, Jim, I've got to go and see Jim from Crossover Property. Big shout out. Going to Nottingham now to go for dinner. So, and then seeing some of his sites tomorrow. So I need to get tracked, boys.
Look, we got through everything. So we've actually stuck to the schedule. I mean, we're a little bit overrun on this pod, so it's a bit longer. But look, thanks for everyone for watching or listening. Don't forget to comment on this podcast on YouTube, comment on Instagram as well. So if you want us to answer any questions in the preceding episodes, you can find this podcast every Thursday, 5:30 a.m. It will come out on Spotify and YouTube. So hopefully you've enjoyed this one. Boys, I think it's been a good one. We've dug into it.
Yeah, very good. And I'd like to leave you all with this. Today, I'm actually going to just read a very quick poem. And Stuart, this will help you for your 2.5-hour drive. It's one of my favorite poems, a short one from Daisy Reinhardt. And it goes like this. I'm tired of sailing my little boat far inside the harbour bar. I want to be out where the big ships float, out on the deep where the great ones are. And should my frail craft prove too slight for storms that sweep those wide seas o'er, better go down in the stirring fight than drowse to death by the sheltered shore.
Wow.
Come on.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Magnificent. All right. Nice one, guys. Thank you everyone for watching. Enjoy Peru, Jack. Hope it's fruitful.
Yeah,
for you,
enjoy
mate.
Peru, mate. See you next week.
See you all later.
Right.
Safe drives, Stu.
Safe on geezers.
Ta-da.
Ground up sound.